I am the CEO of BotBuilt, which means we're going to take what we do now, add robots, and then profit. And that sounds great. And if it was that easy, oh, all for it, yes, but that's not true. We lose 10 times more home builders to death in America than we did every year in the Afghanistan war at its height. I can see us going back to the days when a 30 to 60 day window for an entire home build is completely feasible, if not shorter.
Hello, and welcome back to the Masters of Real Estate. Today, we're going to learn from Brent Wadas. Brent, how's it going, buddy?
I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
Good, good. It seems that you're calling in from the beautiful Research Triangle Park in North Carolina. It seems to be the next Silicon Valley.
Yes, we actually have basically more computer science PhDs than anywhere else in all of America, save the entirety of the Bay Area. So it's a little known fact, but it's quickly growing as a new tech hub for America. And so we're proud to be here, that's for sure.
I love that. And I'm very bullish about housing in that area.
Very
So,
much.
how do you introduce yourself these days?
First and foremost, I'm a husband and a father, but right now, for the context of your audience, I am the CEO of BotBuilt, which means I get to help revolutionize construction through the latest and greatest in AI and robotics technology, and making housing not just more affordable, but more cost efficient for investors, for home buyers, and for generational wealth creation for the future of America.
That's incredible. We've had builders on the show, but nobody building the way you are. So I'm really keen on learning from you today. But before we get into all that, listeners really want to get a feel of who you are as a person and what BotBuilt is as a company. So what spirit animal or bird do you think best describes you and the company?
Yeah, I see us really as sheepdogs. I've definitely always seen myself as that. That's an interesting animal, and that it is it's a vicious creature on the outside. It's a big fangs, big bowed up animal, but its instinct is to protect the herd of sheep that are allowed to live their lives to their fullest potential. And yet someone is looking on the outside, looking for the wolf at the gate, looking for the stormer at the castle, and just protecting that which they value so dear and would give their life for. And everyone that comes into BotBuilt, quite frankly, and this may seem way aspirational, yes, we're a technology company, but the people here are engaged in building a future which has meaning. And so for me, at the root of all of that means that we are sheepdogs. We're the wolfhounds. We're on the protection prowl. We might look a little different. We might be a little more hardcore, but at the end of the day, it comes from a place of love and real protection for the future.
Sheep dogs, love it. I also own a sheepdog doodle, so I know what you're talking about
Nice.
as well. And
Nice.
yes,
Yep.
Yep. I love it. So, Brett, is that kind of the main operating principle of your life? Like, what are the rules in your life? What is your operating principle?
Yes, I cannot deny the fact that I believe wholeheartedly I come from, I guess, the family business, if that's what you want to call it, was service. I grew up watching my grandparents serve others. My father's parents just adopted everyone they possibly could. My mother's parents were constantly traveling and trying to give back with everything that they did. And my parents did those very same things. My mother's a very successful business person. My father's a very successful doctor, but they have not let us let a day go by without thinking about what we can be doing for others. And that's definitely something that's impacted my life. I've got tons of brothers and sisters that do the same thing every day, just basically seeing what the need is in the world and trying to fulfill that in either the smallest way that has consequences later or the most grandiose ways possible. And we just get after it every day.
Help as many people as possible. Is that also the metric that you would use, or what metric would you use to summarize your entire life so far?
Yeah, the metric I would love to see, if heaven and God can give me a counter, I would love to just see how many people I have personally helped to feel better about who they are as people and what they're doing in their lives, because there's something powerful in enabling someone to psychologically feel okay about who they are as a person. And maybe I've impacted 200 people so far in my life. I know that as their circles expand, that positivity grows out. We're talking 2, maybe 3, maybe more billions of human beings that will hopefully have one interaction that allows them to feel okay here and therefore feel okay here, which can make a world of difference in humanity itself and how we get along with one another.
You just gave me goosebumps. But let's go back from the start. Before this vision of helping as many people as possible and helping a few billion people feel better about themselves, and that's really how you measure yourself. Let's go all the way back to zero. What's the broad trajectory been so far from when things were at zero to where they are today?
Yeah, I think in my personal life, it definitely started as a very, very, very young toddler. My first waking memory, I like to share this, and it's just a weird thing, but my first waking memory is crying, not because I was injured, but because I had just realized that there is death. We were going to some great aunt's funeral. I don't even know who it was, quite frankly. I was too young to understand all that. But suddenly the little kid that got to, I had a pool that was a trash can they would fill up with water from the hose, right? I had my Tonka truck. It was the best life in the world. And suddenly my mother was explaining to me, it ends. And one thing I remember very clearly, and whether or not she meant for this to be some profound statement or not, but it was, she said, because it ends, you live every day that you get to the fullest of your potential. And from then on, it was just game on. I have tried to be moving forward in my personal life and in the lives of others every single day since, because we don't get to see what our clock is. We don't get to see when it stops. But I just want to know that even when my numbers pulled and my tickets punched, that I was in the middle of action to improve the lives of those around me, just because we don't get anything else. And that basically dictated most of my actions and decisions from then on out.
Seems like you come from a successful family that still taught you grit. And that's a question most parents have right now, which is, even if we are successful, how do we help our kids be hungry and be successful? So what advice did you absorb from this, like, from the parental figures and mentors in your life on how to help others learn grit
Yeah,
as
that's a great question, Nick. From my parents' perspective, and the way that I learned it anyway, is they both had great resilience and great grit, and that's a great psychological term that thanks to Duckworth's work, has really come out in the open. My parents are very successful, hugely successful, like beyond their wildest dreams. I guarantee you, beyond their parents' wildest dreams. But they were very clear whenever I'd be like, why don't we have that bigger house? Why don't we have that nicer car? And it's because they chose to save their money. And they reminded me very bluntly, like, I am rich, Brent. You are not. You will have to go earn your own out there in the big wide world. So I didn't get to have that opportunity to become as entitled as some parents do. And I think as a parent myself, I've got two grown daughters. One just got married recently. So, I'm not just bald for fun. This is actual, real true things. But what I've tried to teach my daughters is, at the end of the day, that anxiety muscle, that grit muscle has to be exercised. You have to let your kids do hard things, experience hard times, and let them fail forward, or else that muscle won't be exercised. And at the slightest resistance, they will crumble.
a few billion people, Brent. That sounds insane. I just got some goosebumps. But let's go all the way back to zero. There must have been a time in your life when you didn't measure yourself on how many people you were helping. So, what has been your broad trajectory so far?
Yeah, I think for me, it goes back to just being a little kid. I had everything I would ever want. I was a toddler, and my first waking memory of existence on this earth is literally going from like getting to play in a trash bucket filled with water as my pool in Arizona and having a little Tonka truck, to my mother explaining to me what death was. And I was bawling. That's my first memory. I'm crying because suddenly we're going to some great aunt's funeral that I've never met, of course. And, suddenly I'm coming to realize this ride will stop. And my mother, whether she meant to be profound or not, or she was just trying to console a little toddler before having an embarrassing, event at a funeral, she just took me aside and said, Brent, that is why from here on out, you know that this ride ends, but you live every day to the fullest of your potential and ability. And for me, the way that I've interpreted that and carried that forward is, I want to know, obviously I can't know when I'm going to have my number pulled and my tickets punched, when my days here on earth are over. But every day that I've lived, I've tried to be in some sort of action that will move both myself and society forward. So I feel personally driven by that internal sense of, okay, I can't tell you when I'm going, but I will tell you every day that I'm here, I'm going to be fighting for that which I perceive to be the right things for the most amount of people possible, those I love and those I've never met, just to improve the quality of life here on this earth, because that's the way that I'll sleep well at night, knowing that I'm in that action.
Visualizing the concept of death for the first time was a very powerful mentoring moment from your parents who taught you how to live life well. Brent, did you come from money?
I definitely do come from money. I mean, my parents definitely don't, but they were very successful. My mom is a very successful businesswoman. My father is a very successful doctor, just top of their game type of individuals who have invested very well in real estate. They've done very well professionally, and they've got these stellar reputations of integrity, which I just cannot speak highly enough about, that they've done these great things while maintaining their reputation as the person who will be the honest, loving voice in the room, which is insane, especially in today's society. But for me personally, what they were good about was also teaching me, hey, yeah. No, Brent, we're rich. You are not. When we go, it's on you. You have to figure your life out. You have to earn your own way. And if you want to be rich, that's great. Be aspirational, be rich, but earn it yourself, because you're not getting it here. And I had every advantage growing up that comes from coming from money. Like, if we're just being blunt here, my parents taught me how to manage taxes, how to do corporate governance as a young child. Just these things that put me eons ahead of the average individual that doesn't come from money, unfortunately. But at the same time, what I appreciate was they taught me that you need to fight for it. You need to have resilience, and you need to be the one putting in the work if you want to be living like we do. This has not come easily. And those lessons are invaluable to me and something I've passed on to my two daughters as well.
You need to fight for yourself. That's so powerful. And this is a very critical question faced by most successful parents today, which is how do we teach grit to our kids? How did you learn grit and how are you teaching grit to your own kids?
Yeah, this is going to sound really dumb, but as a little kid, I loved McDonald's, right? I don't know if they put like nicotine in the French fries or something, but I was cripplingly addicted to McDonald's. And my grandfather sometimes he'd take me there and we'd go to the smoking section, right? And my mother would sometimes be there. We'd be in the non-smoking section because Grandpa didn't smoke around his daughter. That was, obviously I wouldn't smoke around the kids, one of those things. But we'd sit there and I couldn't look adults in the eye. I didn't have the bravery, didn't have the courage, didn't have the grit to ask for things from adults, including the probably 15-year-old working behind the counter at McDonald's, which to a 4-year-old is this intimidating, huge live person. And so they were great about knowing that, I'd go through my orange drink, Ricky Tick. Like I would just sip that thing down and then I'd be thirsty for the rest of the meal. And if I wanted more orange drink or more ketchup, I had to go ask for it. And I think it's very easy for parents seeing that little shaking 3 or 4-year-old to go, I should just do that for him. Look at him, he's scared. But they didn't. And they were very intentional about making sure that I had the self-confidence to go and walk up to that individual and say, hi there, and politely, mind you, because they were listening to the polite words, could you please fill up my orange drink? And the minute I could get to the point where I could say it, that was huge for me. The minute I could look into their eyes, that was huge for me. And by the time I was 7, much to probably their chagrin, they couldn't shut me up. I wanted to be in the room with the adults. I wanted to have the conversation with the adults. And it was all thanks to their being intentional about letting me do hard things, letting me be scared, facing that fear, because that's the only way you learn bravery is by doing the action in spite of your fear. And that is something that has just always stuck with me and that I'm forever grateful for.
Be brave in front of fear. That's when bravery really counts. So, Brent, seems like you also had a chance to look at your background. It seems like you spent nearly a year in the US Army. And right now, you're in construction technology. How did you decide where you wanted to pursue your career?
I think for me, it's more about the overall direction than it is the exact thing. And so being very young, I was blessed to get to, I got to play music a lot with a lot of very talented people, even though I wasn't the most talented guy. Then from there, I got to work on some companies that, quite frankly, I was way too young to be a part of, but they brought me in and they let me learn and develop and had some very good outcomes from those. And those great outcomes really gave me the courage to chase down a dream, which was quite frankly, especially after 9/11, it was just emboldened in my brain that I should go and serve my country. My brother served in the first Gulf War back when it was cool to invade Iraq, in 2001. My grandfather fought in World War II very bravely in the Pacific Theater. And so for me, it was just something that you should do. You should serve your country with blood, sweat, and tears. And as an able-bodied young person, I was definitely the oldest person in my basic training class, but that's okay because I'd been through the business world already. Went through basic training, went through officer candidate school, and then went into the world of both airborne ops and special ops and just got to work with some of the most brave, incredible people. And through that process, I learned leadership lessons you just can't learn in business. I learned about what it is to face an enemy, true enemy, that wants you dead. Yes, that just wants you dead. That is their main business objective. Brent Wadas dead, done. And knowing that and learning that you're not just, we say all the right things. We're fighting for the ideals of this country, for freedom, to liberate the oppressed, whatever it might be. But really, we're fighting for the people to our left and our right that are in that firefight with us. Those are the individuals that you fight for. You want to bring them all home alive. And that's a lesson that just sticks in your heart. And so I was very blessed to serve with some incredible people. And I took those lessons. I had some unfortunate things happen to me in the Army. It's dangerous work, right? Things happen. I had some incidents downrange that gave me epilepsy, unfortunately, in the old brain box. So that's just a real injury. And then one general officer called me the world's worst living parachutist because they actually didn't discover the epilepsy till I had busted up my neck and my back in a parachute crash or two. And it was during surgery that they discovered everything. And so it was time to hang up the boots. And while I was hanging up the boots and kind of saying goodbye to that era of my life, which I grew to love greatly. It wasn't always easy on the wife and kids, but it was a sacrifice that we made together. Then that's when Barrett, who is married to my cousin, my CTO and co-founder, introduced me to a few of his friends, like our other co-founder, Colin, and had this idea. Barrett has been working with robots his whole life. He had this great idea and he wanted someone to kind of put a shape to the business aspect of it. And I just knew right then and there, as someone that's been deeply involved in real estate investing most of my life, this is something that has to be done with better precision, And for everyone to really get generational wealth, we have to use robots. And Barrett had the answers there through AI. And so I came right on over to BotBuilt. So it's a circuitous route for sure, but it's one I'm very happy to have taken.
Holy cow. And seems like the team you have built with yourself, Barrett, and Colin is quite a team. I'm looking at your website right now, and Barrett has a PhD in computer science from a top tier university, and he's deployed a bunch of robots across the world, including at NASA. And Collins
Mhm.
seems to be a Forbes 30 under 30. So how did you even build this really amazing team? This sounds like an incredible team.
It is an incredible team, and the people that we have working alongside us every day here are just masters of their domain. But they're also, to touch on what you touched on earlier, that grit aspect is something we purposefully look for in the hiring process. And we know that we're not experts in hiring, so we've brought in experts from the world of special operations and the world of NFL and MLB selection committees. These are psychologists and psychiatrists that have been trained to find certain criteria, not just in intelligence. Intelligence can only get you so far. It's that practical teamwork that really creates an entity which can do, just like the principles of horsepower, way outperform the number of people that are involved. And when I walk around, whether it's here in the R&D facility or it's over at our light production facilities, and you see the folks working here, it's inspiring. These are the smartest human beings I've ever met in my life, but they're humble and they get after hard problems. They do not know when to quit. And that is just something that is invaluable. So we've been incredibly blessed to not just have this, these two co-founders that I'm so incredibly blessed to be a part of, but really everyone on this team, they're looking to their left and the right and thinking, how can I do better to earn my place tomorrow here at BotBuilt? And it's just awesome to see them tackle hard problems in the most challenging dynamic environments.
Incredibly blessed indeed. So, what's the main focus area for the three of you and you specifically these days?
My main focus right now is just a couple of little buckets, right? So I put a lot of my time into just the team dynamics of what's happening here. So strategically speaking, we have large goals. Is everyone kind of feeling supported and like they have what they need to be at their best? We're still in that startup phase. There are obvious, resource constraints that are involved in that. And that's okay. But if there's something that I can affect a positive change for, I'm going to get after that. Barrett, as the CTO, is in the weeds with every technical problem that we have. And the way that he's thought about things, not just from the framing perspective, from using generative AI to go from a two-dimensional blueprint to a three-dimensional generative panel, all of that is wildly beyond what was the status quo. And the team that he's assembled really does look to him as that field general that's pointing out exactly what needs to change and how we could approach those hard changes. And then Colin, not just with his academic background, but with his just what I'll call natural charisma, is able to generate not just good operational strategy, but he's good at working with our customers and those that want to be a part of this journey and making sure that their expectations are set and that they have a realistic expectation as to what's possible in the future. So when they come to us, they know what they're asking for. And it's just been great to see those relationships develop over time that he's really brought to the table.
For somebody who's never heard of BotBuilt, how do you explain it to them? Like, how does BotBuilt play a role in helping your customers succeed?
The one thing that we did is we looked at, just saying, I want to use robots in construction is kind of a popular thing to say nowadays. And one thing I definitely wanted to avoid is what I'll call the CEO hand wave. And that's where you'll see it all the time and just insert your technology, but they do it a lot with robots. The CEO will go, we're going to take what we do now, add robots, and then profit. And that sounds great. And if it was that easy, all for it, yes. But that's not true. And you see people do that with AI, humanoids, whatever new technology they want to say to get attention. That's great. What we've really done is gotten down to the nuts and bolts of what construction looks like, seeing what the biggest pain points are, specifically in residential construction. There's a reason for this. And then see how we can have the greatest impact on that process. So when we look at residential construction, robots are great at doing the same thing over and over again, which is awesome if you're in commercial, if you're in light gauge steel. And quite frankly, that's a much easier technical problem to solve with robots, but it's also a harder business problem to approach as a startup because now you're in the bids process, you're in permitting process, and you're just waiting on a lot of other people and you just want to try something. And so for us, we looked at single family residential, and then what's the hardest thing for them to know when it's going to be done, because there's so many cascading events that happen in any type of construction project. But in single family, that framing process, getting the estimate right on the lumber, getting the cuts right on the actual team, getting that lumber in place, getting the framing up, making sure the weather cooperates, and then making sure that team is on the job site for enough days to actually get that job done on time, impact when your electricians come, your plumbers come, your home inspections come. All those little things delay home building. And so when we look at the broad swath of Americana, especially in the North American markets, and we see that some homes are taking up to 18 months to be built for single family, under 3,000 square feet, that is unsatisfactory. What we found is that 40% of that time cost is coming from the framing not being done on time. So looking at that problem set, what we then did, okay, how do we do framing? Well, framing, you can't just say we're going to change everything and make sure that the builders have to use our new type of material or light gauge steel in a wood market or blah, blah, blah. We addressed it where it is. We meet the companies where they are. They're using stud grade lumber, which is garbage lumber. It's bowed, bent, warped, barked, all that stuff. They're using it using rudimentary PDF plans. That's all their architecture gave them. And then they're having to make estimates using the old fashioned way. Some people literally still using their thumb as guessing that's about 16 inches apart and making an estimate on the lumber. And so when you're going through those type of what I'll call anachronistic ways, we found an opportunity there. So what we did is we worked on a software platform and a hardware platform to work where they're at. So the first thing we do is we take your two-dimensional PDF, we put it into our generative AI system. It generates a three-dimensional model of the framing itself, every nail, every stud, every piece of sheathing. It's all marked out for you. That creates a panel book. That panel book shows you every type of panel that we built. We're building flat pack wall panels, right? Once that's QA'd, like, yep, those are my window dimensions. Yep, so that's the type of headers we like to build with this company here. Great. Then it goes to another system where instead of us having to reprogram those robots for every different panel, we let the robots decide how to move. We've built custom tooling for just basic off-the-shelf robots. So we literally bought all of our robots that we have right now in our newest facility off of eBay. They came out of the Spartanburg, South Carolina BMW plant, because once they're out of zero point 0.2 millimeters, zero point 0.2 of spec for BMW, done. They will no longer build the X7 or whatever large SUVs are coming out of that facility, which in residential construction, I'll take 0.3 mil all day long. That's fine and dandy, right? So we buy them off eBay on the cheap. We give them the latest and greatest tooling systems that we've developed that use computer vision systems. And using those systems together with the panel book, with the code, those robots see, oh, panel 21, it looks like this. Great. I'm going to, just from a basic bunk of lumber, scan that lumber, pick it up, cut it, mark it so that it's like building with IKEA. Panel 1 connects to panel 2. Panel 2 connects to panel 3. Panel 3 connects to panel 4. So 3 framers, not 5, not 8, not 15, 3 framers can put together a 2,000 to 4,000 square foot single family home in under a day. Wow. And unlike IKEA, we haven't caused any divorces. So that's a big win for us, basically, in that assembly process. But it's just making it as simple as possible using the same materials. And yes, it's very difficult to build a system that can read from a computer vision model what needs to be changed if that board is bowed 7 inches over 8 feet or over 9 feet. Getting a tool to grip it and move it back just like a human would and nail it perfectly to the square, then QAQC it, not just for the how deep did the nail goes in the right spot, but is it to the square? That's a huge amount of technology. And that huge amount of technology took a huge amount of work. But at the end of the day, that's transparent to the builder. The framer just says, oh, cool, panel 1 goes to panel 2. They don't care about any of that stuff. They just want it done right, and they want it done faster. They want it done more cost efficient. And there's no better estimate than ours because we have to tell the robots what to cut. When I tell you this is the amount of wood we're using, these are the amount of nails, this is how much the nails cost, it's all right there. Done.
Wow. Just seems like you're using automation and robotics heavily to solve the most important problems builders are facing today, which is they want to build, but they don't have enough people to build it quickly.
Correct. And I think for anyone of my generation, really, and I'm not going to disclose what that is, but I'll let you guess based on the hairline, right? For anyone of my generation, we were probably, if we were in any type of home that wanted upward mobility, we were told, you go to college or you go to grad school or else you'll end up like them in the trades. And I'm telling you, that threat worked, and now we don't have a lot of tradespeople working anymore. We don't have people that value hard work with their hands. I'm hoping to improve that. We work with a few schools out here, some trade schools, to help folks realize if you go into carpentry, you're going to be working with robots. It's not just this boring job that you want to avoid. We're going to make it safer and better for you. And we want those tradespeople to feel like they've accomplished something because that's at the root of what makes any job worth doing. And the one thing I always throw out there, and anyone that's listening to me on any podcast or forum will probably get sick of me saying this, but I'm going to say it again. We lose 10 times more home builders to death in America than we did every year in the Afghanistan war at its height. 10x. We lose on average about 35 service members in uniform in Afghanistan. We would lose about 350 people just trying to build homes, put bread on the table. And that to me is so unsatisfactory, it's disgusting. When I signed up for the Army, if I died, like that's the game, right? I raised my right hand. I said, I'm willing to do it. If I died, my wife can go marry an attractive guy for once. Like life moves on. These people that are building our homes, the places in which we dwell, they just want to put food on their table for their families. And we owe them way more than that type of it's more dangerous than being in the Army job, because that's something that at the root should be the basics of what we do as good humans.
That's incredible. And I completely agree. We do have a massive deficit of trade schools. And I think building, hundreds, if not thousands of more trade schools will help reskill a lot of our workforce and prepare them for the future. But while that happens, and few years or maybe a few decades that might take to make work, you're
Mhm.
already solving the problems through robotics and automation. For somebody who has never seen your work before, how do you help them visualize how this works in action?
Yeah, the first thing I always have people do if they have access, just go to our website, botbuilt.com, because it just shows a quick little video on the splash page. It shows you exactly how the robots work. They can see two robots that are on rails. They're just picking up from a bunk of traditional lumber, a bunk of pressure treated lumber. They've got a bunk of sheathing, a bunk of headers. They're picking it up. They're running it through their auto saw system. They're cutting it. They're placing it. They're building these wall panels. Those wall panels are shipped on a hotshot truck right to the job site, and then framers are just able to take those off. Just they've got their one page of instructions. It's literally a one pager. It's just the outline of the home with the panels and all the inside panels. They know exactly where they go. They just start nailing them together and bolting them down to the foundation like that, like they would any normal house, just not with having to do all that work and cutting on the job site. And so that process really is just two industrial arms. If you want to picture just your basic big old yellow or orange, or now we paint them gray here, battleship gray, much to my chagrin. But we've got these huge robots, 2,500-pound beasts that can pick up any tool. So if they need to have a sheathing tool, a routing tool, a gripping tool, a stud plate connector, whatever it might be, a saw tool, they're able to change out as they go, pick it up, move it on. And that's what really gives us the flexibility that's necessary to meet the American market. We're not here to build boxes. We're not here to build, communist style, brutalist houses that all have to look the same. Every home should be a snowflake. Every American and every person on earth should have access to a home that makes them feel inspired artistically because it's an architectural design that is unique. And robots should not be the limiting factor in that. By using the AI tools that we have and some of the patents that we've created in our software platform, we're able to build every home as a different home every time without any change to the hardware and software that we're using. And that is the unlock which allows us to move forward and really make a huge difference for not just the smallest builder, but the biggest builder, to give true choice to the consumer that's out there and the investors that rely on them.
That's incredible. Can you describe your target customer persona?
Yeah, so there's actually a few for us. One is, think of your basic everyday builder that's building, anywhere from 5 huge custom homes to 5,000 semi-custom, tract style housing. They've been kind of our sweet spot so far, just because they let us test as much as we can. And they're also 100% okay with a lot of us showing up at the job site with our little notepads, taking every note we can from their framing crews, because we want to improve every process that we can. Framing crews they're great. They give great direct feedback. You don't always get that from the project manager or the builder that wants to have a better relationship with you. So they're like, oh, it's all great. Everything's wonderful. Like, no, tell us where we can better this product for the actual stakeholder here, which is the framer. That's kind of who's been the ideal. We've now started working with what I guess you would call the traditional top 10, top 15 builders in America, just because now we've got some repetition in the space there. But we always want to make sure that we have access for the smallest builder and the custom home builder as well. And then we just started working with what I'll call traditional lumber distribution centers and estimates folks, because that software that we developed just for the robots is in itself its own type of product. The ability to give you an exact cut list, an exact measurement list, an exact buy list for each individual plan is huge. So we've got a few customers now that are they're lumber suppliers, for lack of a better term, and they just want to have their estimates done much more quickly and not have this loss factor or this overestimation that customers really grind on them for.
Fascinating. And for somebody curious to learn about the growth of your business, like how would you describe your track record so far?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think realistically speaking, we started really ideating, 2019, 2020. By 2020, we incorporated, but we were still kind of going through the motions of getting to know the customers. And we researched every type of customer. We probably annoyed a lot of different builders, developers, landowners, stakeholders, investors, but we just wanted to know them personally. We wanted to know what their pain points were to a degree where we felt that. So when we took on these problems, it wouldn't just come from a guess and check method. It would come from a place of knowledge and research. In 2021, that's when things started getting serious. We went to Y Combinator, the incubator of Silicon Valley there. It was great to be selected there. It's a great network, obviously, and just the uplift that you feel from people that have been there, done that, and can mentor your tech firm up has been greatly beneficial. We got our first robots at that point as well, and really started honing in on the technology. We've spent the 2 years in between there just really iterating, building different types of homes, running through as many plans as we can, improving the actual hardware technology, improving the software set. And now in 2024, we've been mainly focused on, okay, this works, it's time to scale. So we are just now on the precipice of scale realistically. Now that we've got more of what I will call the copy and paste model, our little cells, they're not these giant European 600 linear foot robot lines, take 35 people to operate, and 4 of them are paid PhD consultants. Barrett, insulting to me somewhat, says they have to be infantry proof, right? It has to be the dum-dum in the army that can operate several machines at once in a very small compact space, so we're not just wasting money on air conditioning and heat. And that makes a huge difference. Now we're at that point, we're ready to start scaling this out nationwide.
So for somebody listening to this that is evaluating and that is struggling with the housing affordability crisis going on nationally, and is evaluating, why they should live in a robotically constructed home or automated constructed home. What's the industry phrase for this thing?
Yeah, it's just what I'd call building components or panelization. To the home buyer, it looks the same. To the investor, it looks the same as any other home. It's built the same way as any other home. Instead of building those panels on the ground floor in the outdoors and the exposed elements with humans that are often inaccurate, it's done with the precision and QA that only robots can bring to the table, that only machines can get to that exacting science. And it doesn't leave our factory unless it's perfect. And so that ability for the average buyer means that they get the same home they would get. It's just better. Not only that, with our panel book, you don't even have to, if you want to put in a nail to hang up a piece of artwork on your studs here, you just know exactly where every stud is in your home. It's almost like you've got an instruction manual for your house. Every stud, every nail, every sheathing, which means all the loads, all the little things that inspectors really care about that make a huge difference. We're able to provide automatically in both written and digital formats for everyone to understand very easily.
For somebody listening to this, I think they should be aware that, what Brent mentioned, with they working with the top 10 builders in the country. I think the top 10 or so roughly builders control a super majority of the market. And when they build homes, they give it to a subcontractor who gives it to another subcontractor. And usually there tend to be some non-zero lapses, and it ends up dissatisfying some home buyers who thought they were buying a new construction but end up with a bunch of problems in it. And it seems like the problem you're solving is perfecting that new construction process. So the probability of that home having any real material problems is eliminated down all the way to as close to zero as possible.
Yeah, I think that there's a big issue that comes with the culture of quality, and we're trying to change that permanently in the sense that we want people to feel that when they're in their home, it was built to the standard that they would want it to be built in. And at BotBuilt, we really care deeply, not just about the precision of robotics, but the quality that people will be living in that home. And we take that very personally because if I were to put my family in it, I want that stamp of approval done, not just good enough. I want it great. I want it perfect. I want it precise, and that's the robotic.
And for making it perfect and precise, how does BotBuilt generate revenue?
Basically on two fronts, basically. So the first thing we do is we sell components. So a builder comes to us, he says, I'd like to build this house. We send them out the component list. He says, cool. And so they send us a check. We send them out panels, and they're off to the races with their actual build. And then the other end, like I was saying before, is lumber yards and construction manufacturers and other people that are very involved in that estimation process pay us a monthly fee, and they send us plans, and we send them back the panel book, the estimate, and the cost sheet. And for them, that makes a huge difference.
So how did you, it seems like you built a company to quite a bit of scale, where it's just copy paste and scaling it to our next degree. How did you go from managing everything to now managing a team and a culture?
Yeah, I think culture is the right word there. You build the right culture, and the right people will manage either themselves and they've been guided by right principles to do so, or you've got the right people in charge of those folks and making those right decisions. So we use a lot of the mission command philosophy, which is, I firmly believe that I should not have to be in charge of every decision that someone on the line makes. If they're smart, if they're intelligent, we trust them enough to be here at BotBuilt, they can be making those decisions. On occasion, we might have to do a little course correction, but we empower them to make the decisions so that we're not just the overseers of every little detail. By hiring first, it's that old phrase, right? You fire fast, but you hire slow. By hiring slowly, being methodical about it, make sure those teammates can work together, you save yourself a lot of headache and a lot of just that oversight that comes with micromanagement.
Yeah, absolutely. And we call it freedom and responsibility. And it's a very similar philosophy. What is the story behind you naming this company BotBuilt?
Yeah, integrity matters to us. And I have been told, basically by a few investors that wanted to invest early on that we actually didn't let in the cap table. One precisely said to me, hey, just so you know, Brent, that your honesty bias might impact your ability to get investment. And I just kind of laughed, like, buddy, that's called integrity, just so you know. And so for us, we do what we say what we are. It's built by bots. It's BotBuilt. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yes, we're using generative AI, and you play buzzword bingo all day with folks. It's all the cool tools that we're using. But really, we want folks to have that trust in what they're actually getting, and that can only come from robotic precision. And that's what we wanted in the name. If it's built right, it's built by bots. It's BotBuilt.
BotBuilt, indeed. What else should listeners know about BotBuilt that we haven't discussed already?
Just that we are really part of a team of a rising generation of tech companies focused on the construction industry. I tell folks in every panel and every type of meeting I go to, make sure that you're doing your due diligence when you're bringing on technology. There's a change management process to taking on some type of new tech, and you really have to be a part of that process as a leader, and then your team has to be invested in that as well. There's a reason we went with wood framing, because there's not a lot of that change management involved. We still want to be deeply involved in what that customer's future success looks like. through robotic technology. So for us, that's a big aspect of it. And the other thing that I just like people to know is that there's a lot of folks out there doing some good in this industry. For the future of investment in real estate, the future of growth in real estate can happen. And I'm just excited to see the rising generation of technologists, of construction labor, and of really thoughtful individuals who are on the investment side putting together a plan for the future that matters. And that's what drives us here.
Brent, what's your main aspiration for the next 12 months?
Next 12 months is get another factory up and running here, and then work with a couple of partners in a few more states, especially here in the Sun Belt that's really growing like crazy. So you're looking at your Florida, your Texas, your Northwest Arkansas, and be able to have that type of station command where we've got new expansions going in, and then working with some partners that want to be using our technology in their facilities that they have existing already and optimizing their ability to use robotics and AI.
Absolutely. And what are the biggest bottlenecks to your growth in the next 12 months?
The biggest bottlenecks to us will just come from making sure that we're not growing too quickly. I think that there's something that when people just think of hyperscale, this isn't software. We have to install the robots. We have to make sure they're running right. There's a QA process for that. Just making sure that we're not getting out ahead of ourselves, and making sure that the customers that we're working with fully understand the process and are ingrained in the responses that we want them to have, which is that feeling of not just, I like this, so I'll purchase it, but I want to be a part of this so the future looks better, so we don't have such shortages that prices are out, and that makes almost all investment deniable for the majority of people that would like to get into this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And for someone interested in partnering up with your team or working with your team, how should they reach out to you and your team?
The best way to reach out to the entire team is through info at botbuilt.com. That's the easiest way to get us. We always respond to those, whether it's me personally or one of our teammates that is more affiliated with whatever the topic that you've emailed us on. You can obviously find us on LinkedIn, where we've got our own page at BotBuilt. I'm Brent Wadas. You can reach out personally to me anytime as well. And that's probably the best way, just to get in touch and begin that conversation. We have about 30 or 40 a week with people that would like to start using our technology and learn more about how they can actually change their lives.
Now, let's talk about the future of construction and real estate. It seems like the housing shortage crisis is now a national talking point. So how has the recent change in housing climate and awareness of the housing affordability issue impacted BotBuilt?
We're a little bit insulated from it at our phase of the game, but it's something that we think about deeply. Colin did a lot of his research in going into government housing policy. And what that means for us is we know that there are many factors which impact the investment game, and that investment side of the real, especially for single family and real estate investment as a whole, that can impact the rates and the pricing at which the average person can actually buy a home. And so for us, what we'd like to see is just good old capitalism at work. And that's by increasing the supply and shortening the time it takes to get that supply from a piece of dirt to keys in the hands of a consumer, or keys in the hands of someone that's going to actually use and love that home and build a family there. That's where we feel we'll have the biggest impact. And so while I can't always impact what Jerome Powell and the Fed are going to do, I can't always predict what the government can and can't do legally and illegally. What I can do is just right now dig in and shorten that span and increase that supply and do it with the best, most quality product possible without impacting price in a way that is adverse to both consumers and investors.
So Brent, what's your ultimate vision of the real estate construction industry? Like, if you had to put a number to it, what do you think will be the time frame and the cost basis for somebody who has acquired land and has acquired the rights to build on that land, and once they're ready to start building, what do you think will be the time frame and the price point for them getting their home in the future?
I see that as compacted greatly. As we increase the technology that we can use, whether it's routing and electrical, routing and plumbing, all these grand visions that we have for the future of robotic technology, by creating ubiquitous platforms that still allow for flexibility, I can see us going back to the days when a 30 to 60 day window for an entire home build is completely feasible, if not shorter, especially given what we have. Oh yeah, I think that is quite possible, and it's just a matter of us making sure that the technology stays affordable enough so it can be ubiquitous enough so that everyone can enjoy those types of timeframes, which then in turn allows us to not just have quick homes and easy homes, but custom homes that are quickly built that still maintain quality. And that's our vision there.
High quality homes in 60 days. I love it.
Yes.
What is the problem you want to see in the industry that hasn't been still solved properly yet in the construction industry?
Really, I think it's a culture problem. I think it's about letting more people in that labor, more people understand what is important about labor, and that's that feeling of a job well done, that position of accomplishment, that you did something that matters. There's nothing quite like watching a home that you helped build go up. There's nothing quite like that feeling of watching someone walk in that home for the first time and feel that sense of pride and knowing that this is a safe space that they get to have all to themselves and with their family. And to me, that matters the most. So what we'd like to see is just more doors open up to more people getting after labor problems that are real, and more people in general in the world feeling a sense of pride in what they do, regardless of what it is, but hopefully it's in the construction industry.
Absolutely. You should be very proud to work in the trade industry. It pays really well. Most people don't realize how well it pays.
I'm telling you, yep. I think I'm paying my plumber a lot more than me, tell you that much right now.
Now I'll ask you some rapid fire questions so you can coach listeners. Brent, what's your personal real estate portfolio like?
Mainly single family, quite frankly. We've found great success from that. I personally just believe that that is something that is needed out there, and providing, whether it's just homes for people to live in or transitional places, those matter a lot. And the single family market's been very good, something that we know, and it's something that I accept, with a lot of responsibility for just outright knowing that space, knowing that domain, and moving forward in it.
And if a family office calls you and says, "Hey, we want to invest $100 million, but it has to be in real estate," how would you invest that?
I would definitely turn the tables. I would say, yeah, give me all 100 million. I'm telling you right now, I'm not just going to give you this exact allocation of where it's going to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that we can actually increase the supply of that real estate, so you'll have more investment opportunities through new technologies, not just at BotBuilt, but other folks that are really changing the game, and letting that money grow exponentially, not just in land and buildings, but in the future of what those land and buildings can be and look like, so that we all have a future that is stable and a high growth and net return on that money.
And when we talk about this space, what is the biggest mistake you see your peers making?
It's a lot of just the overselling for no reason. If you're in technology, just say it like it is. Just be who you are and cast a vision, sure, but make sure people know the differentiation between what is now and what is in the future. And be honest with that. And the people that should be backing you will back that vision. They will back you and believe you because of that. Where we see people get in trouble, especially in this kind of quasi-construction tech realm, is when they just get out in front of themselves saying the things they shouldn't be saying, and then they let people down. Your reputation is something that is very hard to get back once you've lost it.
Absolutely agreed. Maintain your reputation at all costs. Don't project a vision that you can't fulfill just to get venture dollars.
Bingo.
If your loved ones agree to be mentored by you, maybe your daughters, maybe your wife, maybe other loved ones in your life, what's the most important skill you would teach them?
I would probably try to teach them what they've taught me, is that there's a lot of things to do in the world, but the best thing you can be doing with your time, especially with regards to your loved ones, is spending that quality time with them and just being present with them, building the joy, building the memories that truly creates what is an eternal legacy for everyone involved in your family.
That was Brent Wadas of BotBuilt. If you are thinking about how to solve this massive supply crisis of residential homes across the country, or want to invest in it, or want to join his team, reach out to them on info@botbuilt.com. I'll include Brent's social profiles in the description. If you ever want to talk about real estate anytime, shoot me a note on nick@home.llc. Thanks, everyone.